All right, Ganga, how's your day been going?
Ah, good, good. So happy to see you.
It is great to
Mm,
see you as well. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. You know that I think you're one of those people that I admire a lot.
Well, thank you.
Um, because you've been the person who was at the root of a big transformation for me.
Mm,
You were not the only one for sure, but
yeah,
you were my coach in Ultraspeaking, and holding that
yeah,
space for me was
yeah.
big.
It was an awesome experience. Let's talk about that a little bit. Did we meet? Did I meet you and Miguel in 2020 or was it 2020, 2021?
Probably 2021.
Okay, I think that's right. Because I started with Ultraspeaking, and those who are listening, check out ultraspeaking.com. Right when the pandemic started, and I had read a book called Ultra Learning, which introduced me to Michael and Tristan. So in my head, I was thinking, let's see what these guys can do for me because I've been speaking for a long time, and they blew me away. I sent an email to Michael, really about how do I learn how to speak without notes, and so that started my journey in 2020. How did you find Ultra Speaking?
Yeah, so when the pandemic started, we joined PTYA with Ali Abdal.
Ah,
And
okay.
and that's where I remember in one of the sessions, Ultra Speaking had like a session for the group. And I remember Michael was sitting and I saw Ramana Maharshi book behind him.
Now tell us what kind of book is that? What book are you
Well,
talking
Ramana
about?
Maharshi is that philosopher from India who
Ah,
some
okay,
people called him enlightened being.
okay,
But he has those books of his conversations about the nature of the mind and
okay.
just the nature of our being. And so I thought, how interesting. He's reading Ramana Maharshi, which I think I even came on camera and asked him,
Did you
is
really?
that Ramana Maharshi behind you?
Yeah, yeah,
uh, and then when PTYA was over, I felt strongly that we absolutely need to go into speaking.
yeah.
Yet I thought that my husband needs to go into speaking because he's a doctor and he's
Hmm.
the one who needs to go and record the videos because he's a doctor.
Yeah,
And I'll just record the videos. But he gets stuck when he records videos. And I'll just go with him, just for the heck of it.
yeah.
And then during Ultra Speaking, working with you, I think I realized that I'm super comfortable behind the camera
Hmm.
because I'm afraid to step in and actually say what I think.
Mm. Why were you afraid to do that?
It's such a good question because I didn't have one answer for that.
Mm.
But I think discovering that, because I know, maybe to back a little bit from that, I never had an anxiety, how some people think, oh, I'm so just anxious to speak, I can't speak. I never thought of myself, oh, I have an anxiety, I don't have an anxiety. On airplane, I can talk to people. And yet, when going into Ultra Speaking and just like, what do I think? What do I think about this? Because strong direction, just express your thought. All of a sudden, I realized that, oh, wait, I don't know what I think, or
Mm.
I do, like, I like to think. I think a lot. So what is happening here?
Yeah.
And then that question is why there is such disparity, and who am I speaking to other people? Like, it's almost not me. That I think sent me on a journey besides Ultra Speaking.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, what is going
Well,
on?
you do a great job, Ganga. You have some excellent videos. I follow you obviously on Instagram, and I want to say maybe one of the first YouTube videos you mentioned Ali Abdal, PTY. Is that part-time YouTubers? Is that what it
Yeah,
stood for?
yeah,
Yeah.
part-time YouTubers
I
Academy.
think you shared that in one of the cohorts. You were twirling in a chair or doing something. But I think there was something there with that. But no, you're doing fantastic. And so you started this journey with speaking in 2021, and now you're coaching people in
Yeah.
2024. So it's almost like I saw you had a live session yesterday when I went to the website.
Yes.
to play some games. So it's like you have come full circle. So what's one of the biggest things that you've learned about yourself, and how has this transformation, I guess, overflowed in different areas of your life?
Oh, what a question. I think the biggest things that I've learned about myself, that it's more about removing something extra more than keep fixing things.
Mm,
Um, for example, today in the morning, I went to take an ice bath. It's a new experience for me,
mhm,
second time. And when going to the ice bath last Monday, so the guy talks to me and they do a little bit of breathing before that. And then you go into 37 Fahrenheit water
mm,
and you stay from a minute to 5 minutes. So whatever you feel comfortable with. So the guy says, hey, you're a yogi, you can breathe, you're healthy, you can do this. And I think I haven't been in cold water for a long time. I did have an experience of jumping in an ice hole, being in Russia,
mhm.
but I've been living in Florida for 15 years. Even the water from shower is not cold here. So, so then when we go to the tub and he says, okay, once you submerge, just extend your exhale.
Mm,
And so I'm going down, my body feels the cold. I'm sitting down and I think, okay, I'm extending my exhale. The next moment, my body just does this thing of like,
mhm,
and he says, hey, just breathe, extend your exhale. So I'm extending my exhale, and then my body still just does this panicky
mm,
panting. But then I caught myself. Why wouldn't I let my body do whatever it needs to do?
mm,
And the moment I let it just do this thing,
mhm,
then I almost could sort of cooperate with it and catch my breath and elongate a little bit. But it was very different from, let me go and fix this thing because I'm not supposed to be panting. And I'm a
mhm,
yogi and I know how to breathe. And I should
mhm.
be just all cool with the ice bath. And then I stayed in the ice bath for 5 minutes.
Wow.
Uh,
That's awesome.
which also was great, but later in the day, I felt a little bit sickish. Like I had a headache, and that was a lesson of, okay, maybe challenge for me is not pushing
That's right. That's right.
it.
Maybe a little too long of an ice bath, huh?
Yeah, because as you've probably seen me also in Ultraspeaking. Okay, if you say go full out, I will do my best to go full out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes again, going to the fact that it's not about fixing, but just removing something
Yeah.
extra.
Mhm.
Today, when I went there, I said, okay, I'm going to do 3 minutes. Or if my body is going to resist, I'll be out in a minute. I'm just going to respect that.
Mhm.
But then I also let it even do some sighs or whatever my body wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I was even more relaxed. I could have stayed for 5 minutes, but I respected 3 minutes.
Good.
Okay, I
Yeah.
told you I'm going to do 3 minutes. And I didn't have the shivers afterwards that I had on day
Mm.
one.
Yeah.
So I think it's like a whole self-development is sometimes like that you go one
Mhm.
direction and you overdo it, and then like, wait, okay, it's a
Yeah.
good idea, but maybe just let's relax a little bit and remove whatever blocks me to be with this experience right now
Yeah.
versus fixing it.
Mhm. No, there's a lot of great wisdom there, and I appreciate you sharing that. So, I'm curious. I have a couple of thoughts. How often are you going to do the ice baths? Are you doing it 3 times a week or twice a week? What's your protocol going to be?
Right now, I'm planning about 3 times a week. The
Okay.
biggest challenge is that place is 20 minutes away from me, so
That's what I was going to
it's
ask you
just
next. So
the
you're going,
logistics.
are you trying to go to like in the morning time, or is
Yeah,
it like, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I go at 8 a.m., so I leave my house at 7:30
Gotcha. Yeah.
to be there at 8.
No, there's so much data or research with cold therapy. I've done some in our bathtub, just getting ice, and that's not always the most efficient by any stretch of the imagination. But I've also experienced in people, just putting your face in a big bowl
Yep.
of cold water as
Yes.
well. And I had my son Joshua do that too. And it's pretty amazing what it can do. And then typically, after a shower, I'll try to go maybe like 30 seconds, just turn the water all the way on cold. So, guys like Wim Hof, if I remember, I think that's his name, the Iceman, he started that years ago. And there's an app that he has too with different
Mhm.
challenges and things like that. So that's fantastic. You're beating me right now with that, but I definitely want to incorporate that. And maybe that's what I need to do, start looking into some places that do that. But you mentioned the word remove, which I
Mhm.
think is a great thought for all of us too. I use the Full Focus Planner by Michael Hyatt, and he has different quotes at the top of the pages. And there's a quote by Bruce Lee that talks about, removing the non-essentials. And sometimes
Mhm.
we think if we just add more things or whatever, get a little bit more busier. But you're exactly right. It's often looking inward and, okay, what else can I remove or what can I delete that really opens up a lot more bandwidth or energy or focus and freedom as well. So I appreciate you sharing that with the idea of removing. So would you say right now, Ganga, that you're pretty comfortable with speaking? Because I know you're speaking in different venues,
Mhm.
and do you feel like this transformation is complete, so to speak, with speaking?
I have a very good feeling I got this.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm comfortable with this
Hmm.
in all situations.
Okay.
Um, and I don't even know if I want to ever say, you know, I think if there's something that really matters to me, I would still feel a little bit of butterflies. And to
Yeah.
me, right now, it's okay, I'm human. I
Yeah.
feel things. Uh, and of course, sometimes I find myself in some situations where I still want to make an impression versus
Mm-hmm.
just being with people and speaking.
Mm-hmm.
But even perception of that right now is changing for me. If before I find that I was like, oh my gosh, I still feel this. Why I'm not this perfect human being who's connecting.
Yeah.
Right now, I just stay more curious and like, how interesting. For some reason, I want to make an impression right now, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel disconnected. Uh, like, oh yeah, it doesn't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more just kind of being with the experience versus
Yeah.
curating it constantly. But I definitely, I don't think, I guess I have trust. I can do it.
Yeah.
I still learn. I love listening anything about storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, even working on the voice,
Mm-hmm.
how to deepen and connect more with your voice.
Mm-hmm.
But less out of the place. I need to fix this. Even I
Yeah.
think my accent, some things that may not be clear. I just enjoy working on them. Versus before, I felt, oh, my accent is not clear, or I don't say this word clearly and something wrong with me. Right now, it's like, yeah, it's my accent. But I also enjoy getting things, the nuances of things more
Mm-hmm.
than actually fixing again myself through
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah. I think we all struggle with perfection and first impressions, what other people are thinking and things like that. And it is, yeah, I don't know if the fear always, ever goes away. I know we can definitely get a lot more comfortable, but maybe it's probably more what we do with the fear, where we don't have to, it doesn't shut us down, but it can energize us, or we could use it for our advantage and things like that. So I appreciate you sharing that. You're doing a fantastic job too. Just it's amazing how fast time is actually moving. With 4 years and 3 years for you. And I want to pivot. You mentioned Russia.
Mhm.
So can you share with the audience, how do you get from Russia to Florida? You mentioned Florida as well. Tell us about this journey, this around the
Okay.
world journey you've been on. You and I think, have some similarities with our
Mhm.
childhood, some challenges, and one of the things I'm looking to do more too with guests is really sharing their story.
Mhm.
And this is I Can Do podcast. And I know you have an I Can Do spirit. You've overcome a lot of things in your life. So I'd love for you to share your story from Russia to Florida and to now.
Yeah, I guess the very simple answer, I got married.
We're done.
Yes, no story. You can assume
Yeah,
there's
you can
probably a
assume.
lot of things running in people's minds. It was 17 years ago, almost 17 years ago.
Nice.
But while in Russia, so I was very much into yoga since I was 19. And like very much is basically, I practiced it. I went into every workshop, and I used to translate yoga teachers who would come to Russia, which was 2000, 2001, 2. So it's very beginning. When I came to the first yoga class, it was one of the basements that hardly had yoga mats. And there was not even yoga music CDs. They had 4 tapes that they would play during a class. And the floor was a bit, I don't know, they had probably water or something. It basically was a basement. And so, but I absolutely loved it. There was something that I was like, oh my gosh, it totally makes sense. So there was one teacher who came and I translated for her, and I really loved the way she would explain everything and the practice. And I couldn't go to US where she was from, so I would go to India. And so I went on a tour with her to India, and another guy from US came on a tour with her. And 5 or 7 days later, we got married right there in India.
I gotta know, how did I know this guy, obviously. How did he propose? Can I ask?
It started with a joke. He didn't propose.
Okay.
It just started with a joke of the guy saw this yoga teacher when she came 3 months before. She would go to Indian households. And in India, it's a big thing if your daughter or son is not married by the time they're 30. Culturally, socially, it's just really big thing. So everyone was coming and saying, can you please bless us? Can you please bless us? She didn't say anything. She was just smiling, and talking to them. And then we came in May, and all of those households were already arranging things for the weddings. So we were having a meal, and I said, wait, how did that happen? What did you do? And she said, well, do you want me to arrange your marriage? Which was absolutely a joke. It was a joke. And she turned to Miguel and said, hey, would you marry her? And he's like, sure. And she's like, okay, deal. So it was like, none of us thought of it, oh, we were told to get married, let's go get married. No, it's just afterwards, I don't know, there was little things that would happen that somehow we both began to think, well, getting married.
Wow.
It's really hard to explain. It's one of those stories when things happen, but also there's certain knowing that this is what it's not even supposed to do, but this is what to do. And even if I stop and think, wait, I'm getting married in India, I'm insane. But yet there is a certain thing, this is the way, this is what we're going to do. Yeah. And hey, it's been 17 years, and I actually often joke
it's worked
that he would not have passed dating with me at that time. And I think because being 25,
that's awesome.
I would have looked for different qualities in partnership than the ones I appreciate right now. So in a way, it was a good shortcut of entering a relationship and also having a clear understanding. He doesn't know me. We don't know each other. We have no idea what that is. It's probably madness. It may not work out. And there was probably not that many expectations. And then, of course, it took ups and downs and some commitment to each other. Being in the same community at the time also was helpful because there was a certain thing that we both loved. But also, it's amazing that love can develop over time more than the initial bubble. I would have never thought that before. Before, if I looked even at arranged marriages, which my marriage is not arranged, but I would have thought this is insane. But right now I can see some Indian couples that are actually happy.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm not saying it's a recipe by no means. It's not a recipe. Sometimes it's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But there is something about commitment, less expectation, and putting sort of like a work in the relationship, not just like a work, but that develops way more than if I would have come into a relationship just thinking, oh my gosh, he loves me, so he should do this and that. No, this is not happening. And I'm heartbroken. Like everything that I would have thought at 25, basically, if I dated someone.
Yeah. So that's an amazing story. So you're in Russia, you meet Miguel at it's connected with yoga. So you're bilingual. You're speaking in Russian and English at that time. You're translating. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I studied linguistics, so English was my main language.
Okay. So after you get married, you move to the States?
Yeah. Well, 7 months after
7
that.
months. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. So have you guys always been in Florida then?
Yes. Yeah, pretty much. Because he has his medical practice here, and we thought a few times maybe moving to other states, but his practice is very much developed. He is a dementia doctor. He's a psychiatrist, and people love him here. So it's very hard to leave the clientele and the patients he's caring for.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of great things that you two are doing for sure. Nikki's from Florida as well, so we were just there last month visiting her mom and went to Disney World for a few days. So it's a great place for sure. So yoga continued. Yoga has been a big part of your life. It sounds like almost 2 decades, if not longer, right? Tell us a little bit. How'd you get started with yoga? That feels like, with what I know about you, another big transformation piece. You mentioned that with the code therapy, with the baths, with breathing, and being a yogi. Explain that to us, and how has that helped you, and I guess shaping you with who you are today?
Yeah. So when I was 19 and I was in college, and at the time, I was always, since I was a kid, I was very much into asking bigger questions. Like I grew up in USSR, where as a kid I wanted to be like Lenin. Like literally, we had a little book about Lenin. Like probably kids in US have about Washington, So how he was caring for people, and he was so smart, and he was helping everyone. So you can call it today Soviet propaganda, but it did inspire to be a good person and be smart. So I thought, I want to be like Lenin. And there was no religion, but I do remember asking my mom, is there God? And my mom said, I don't know. I'll have to decide for yourself. Which as a kid did not feel very, it's like, come on, mom. What do you mean?
Give me a little bit of help here, right? Yeah, exactly.
But now looking back, I think, man, my mom is, she's just a simple woman who really doesn't think a lot about those things.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I so appreciate that she gave me that answer.
Yeah.
And then when I was 9, my dad died. He was killed.
Wow.
Before that, he was in jail, so I didn't know him that much. Yeah. But my grandmother, my mom, my father's mother, and my aunt, they very much turned into Christianity right after his death. And it was 1990, so it's right as USSR collapses, and now the church is making its comeback, and everything is changing. So I would go to church with my aunt, and I would read the prayers and everything. And I remember that feeling of going to church on Sunday and being part of something so pure, so transcendent. But I could never keep it. Like it's almost, then I come back and it's almost I'm not this pure child of that big something. At the same time, as Russia was progressing, the Orthodox Church, was establishing more. And then I remember there was a discussion whether Nicholas II would be the saint or not. And I was graduating from school, and that question just completely disrupted that for me, because it didn't make sense how a czar, like I get it, we're revisiting the whole revolution idea and people were killed, but there were many people killed, but how a czar could be sane, it just doesn't make sense. So then trust in Orthodox Church, definitely, I just could not, and Orthodox Church also loves to say that they are the Christian church of the Christian churches.
When you say Orthodox, is that like Greek Orthodox or the Catholic Church, or?
Yeah, like Greek Orthodox that came to Russia. Russia basically, they got baptized. Don't quote me on numbers, but maybe like 918 or 20. And it was a very much political decision historically.
Oh, really?
Well, again, I'm not a history buff, but as far as I know, that the ruler at the time was deciding, oh, shall we go with the Muslims or shall we go with the Christians, Catholics, or Byzantine? And it's like, oh, Byzantine seems to be the better route. But then once Byzantine fell, Moscow became like this city on the hill that is supposed to be the Christian church of the Christian church.
Okay.
And they still pretty much carry this thing, which I also could never understand how a country that was forcefully baptized could be the Christian church of the Christian church. So anyways, and then I read the book Thomas Mann. That was, I don't remember what the book was called, but basically there was a story of this prostitute and some thief that were robbing the villages. And then they got tired of robbing villages and being a prostitute. So she said, hey, I would be a virgin and you'll come and save me. And so they do this whole thing, and then she becomes a saint. And centuries later, they drag her remnants through Paris or France, and everybody is worshiping her. So to me at the time, especially in regard to Orthodox Church, it was just something that completely broke anything that I could connect to Christianity, Bible. And why I'm saying all that before yoga, because it felt super dark. Like at the time, it's just, I was graduating from school and I had my highest honors graduating from school. And people would say, hey, you're so smart. You can do this and that. And the only question that I had in my mind was, what's the point? It's almost everything felt so meaningless. And it's like, what's okay? Like I'll get a job, I'll get kids, and then they get a job and they get kids. And like, what is the point? And then when but at the same time, I was in college. I got in college, I studied languages. I loved languages. And then I thought, well, I would like to do something physically, like train my body maybe a little bit. And I had a boyfriend who spoke about chakras and Chinese poetry. And at the time, I was this person who could never relate to any concept of nirvana or whatever. It's like, what are you talking about? This is just some nonsense. But because I really loved that guy, I really wanted to understand. And I think I'm just the type of a person, if I hear a concept, I could never take it and just say, oh yeah, it's a beautiful concept. Okay, cool. To me, it's like, wow, that's amazing. So how does that apply to life? What is this about? So I went and I found the yoga class. I went to yoga class and then I said, hey, look, there's a yoga class. That's where they speak more about chakras and they do something. And he was not interested at all. And then after that first yoga class, a yoga teacher said, oh, read the Paramahansa Yogananda's autobiography of a yogi. And I read that book. And at the time, that book just almost turned back the light bulb in my dark universe. Because I think he also brings a lot of parallels with Christianity. So then I thought, oh, wait, it's not Christianity itself. It's not spirituality of the practices. It's more just what happens to organized religion sometimes when it gets too involved into whatever it gets too involved. But the essence is still there. So then I began to go to yoga classes, and they were intense. And I still had this big question how the yoga class that I was going to was connected to Paramahansa's Yogananda book on spirituality, because we were doing a lot of intense poses and, standing on our forearms and hands and splits and all kinds of stuff. And so little by little, just going through different teachers, that I found the teacher that her method was way more meditative, way more tuning into the breath and myself. And I thought, oh, that's what I need, because it was super hard for me to just chill. In a way, when I studied about the ice bath, doing 5 minutes, by nature, I think I'm like, okay, yes, I can do this. So let's go 5 minutes. Yoga class, we're doing for 2 hours intense stuff. Yes, I can do this. Let's do it. And I even became a yoga instructor at the time, subbing teachers, I think within a year. Which I could not even touch the floor. I was so not flexible, so not strong. And I was like, okay, let's go for it.
Yeah.
But I think it's also, when I speak about removing, at that point, it's also something that my mindset that was driving me insane. And I was applying the same mindset to now trying to fix that, versus I needed to relax more. I needed to allow way more space, which felt so uncomfortable. If you take me to a yoga class that has less movements, less challenges, it almost felt I'm not even achieving anything. But at the same time, I began to feel this is what I need to train. Also, at the time, I began to develop an eating disorder. So, which I didn't even know first. First, it was just, I just need to eat healthier and to lose some weight, and that's what I do. And it's healthy, exercising and eating better. And then it was almost first on the side of anorexia, which I was never that anorexic that, I had to get to hospital or something. But there was a lot of food control. And then I went to the other side of bulimia. And then when I went to the other side, that's when I realized, wait, I have a problem.
Can I ask, how old were you when that eating disorder began?
So I think when I realized that I had the problem, it probably was 22.
Okay.
Yeah, 22 or 23. But at the same time, it started earlier. That's when I already realized, oh, wait, I have a problem. Like, I'm basically going to the bathroom after eating a few times a day, and I can't control it. First, even when it didn't swing to that side, I was like, oh, it just was one time. I'll just need to eat better, and then I wouldn't want to do this. I just need to do this thing better, exercise better, meditate better. But then when it started happening a few times a day, and I couldn't not do that, like, it's almost a weird thing, because like, I bet anyone who's listening may think, how can you not do it? But yeah, it's almost like a possession of something else. So then, and and again, it was like, what, 2004?
Okay.
There's hardly anything about that, especially it's Russia, So I began to Google, and it's good that I knew English and I could find some websites that speak about this. And then I remember reading something from a psychiatrist, and they said, well, you can't cure an eating disorder, so you just need to learn to manage it. And when I would read things like that, I just thought, can I just die right now? Because I can't imagine living like that. Like, I can't imagine managing, because when you're there, it's like you wake up and it's not that you think of food like, oh my gosh, what I'm going to eat. It's more like, okay, I got to go through the day. Everything will be fine. I will be able to eat. But that thing of what are you eating, not eating, or if you ate too much, or now it's constantly there. So at the same time, I was still doing stuff. And I don't think many people even knew that I was going through it. There's one friend that I told her. But other than that, I don't think people even realized what reality I'm living inside. So it's
And that's typically, is that typically something that individuals who struggle with an eating disorder experience, the secrecy behind it?
I would think that any addiction
Mm-hmm.
is very much secrecy and shame.
Mm-hmm.
I would think if people are alcoholics, which my dad was an alcoholic, my stepdad was an alcoholic, my
Yeah.
grandfather was, both of them were alcoholics.
Yeah.
So
My dad was an alcoholic too.
yeah, sorry about that. Uh, but I remember that when I found myself there, before I thought of them thinking, can they just stop? They
Mm-hmm.
can just stop. I mean, like, look, we're here. Why would they do that? We all could live a good life. And then when I realized, wait, I have a problem in reading that is basically an addiction, then I was like, oh, wait, that's how they are feeling. Which I was fortunate, I think fortunate. I could never take alcohol in. I just, like, anytime I even tried to drink beer or something, it's just something that would not go into my body. Like, never could, increase the barrier or something. I'm saying fortunate, just thinking that with the genetics and family that are so prone to that, who knows uh, if I could take alcohol, what could have happened. But it's an interesting thing that, like, about addictions, that yes, I think all of them are happening in secrecy, and shame is such a big part that fuels the addiction. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. That's a powerful story. I really appreciate you sharing it. And, I know you and I talk offline as well. And so,
yeah,
if you ever have questions, more questions about Jesus or the Bible, obviously more than happy to talk to you about that. And, there is a
yeah,
lot of
absolutely.
confusion too in the world today. So, sometimes that does get in the way, with a lot of misunderstandings and things like that. But, it's something interesting because I'm doing some counseling right now, and I went through some things with my dad. He wasn't around that much. Um, he was an alcoholic, as I just mentioned, and so one of the things I'm learning too is being able to process some of these traumatic experiences. And I'm definitely not a professional by any stretch of the imagination, but it is interesting how so many people have a lot of traumatic experiences and don't even really know it, because we just wake up the next day, or we keep going, and we just kind of keep on moving. And there was one in particular, and I went to a fitness camp in 2017, and I just forgot a lot of stuff that had happened, and talked to my mom and my sister about it, and they started giving me some missing pieces. And really just recently just got the rest of the story of just a lot of different things. So it's really fascinating going back, to our childhoods, and just seeing how, that can impact us, right? And things like that. How were you able to, what was a light bulb moment, I guess, with the eating disorder? That's an I can do moment, right? Of saying, okay, I see what's happening. And anorexia is, if I'm understanding it correctly, where you just kind of starve yourself. You're not eating a lot. And
Yeah,
bulimia is you do eat, but then you force yourself to vomit the food up, right?
yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And sometimes anorexia could be super, super dangerous because
Mm-hmm.
people really starve themselves.
Yeah.
And also on that point, just think of when we think of willpower and that think, hey, I can do everything, that perfection.
Mm-hmm.
Here's where literally a good idea of eating healthier can turn into such self-aggression.
Mm-hmm.
When that willpower is taken so far that you're
Mm-hmm.
just not eating, or eating, I know, 3 apples a day. And you're like, okay, I'm feeling good that I eat 3 apples a day. And coming back to yoga, I think also that yoga was a big part of support, just because there's, and especially the one that I was doing, that was more gentle, more than just sort of striving to get another handstand and things. It's just more connecting with my body, relaxing. So that, I think, was a big support. But also, I read every single book I could get on the topic. I didn't have a therapist. Because on one hand, they were not available. I remember I met one who was visiting from Denmark, and they were doing some workshop that actually was translating. It wasn't about eating disorders, it was something else. And then they mentioned that she has an eating disorder cleaning. So right after the event, I just ran up to her and was one of the first people, I think, like, I have this problem. And they had one session maybe with me, but one session with an eating disorder is
it's not enough.
Especially when, they were asking me, what do you feel? And I had no idea. Like, literally, right now, I'm so much more in tune with this.
In tune with your body and like feelings as a whole.
Yes. Not to say that I never like, what do I feel right now? But in general, I definitely can be like, I'm feeling frustrated, or wow,
Gotcha.
that makes me really sad. At the time when they would, I don't know, show me something, or what do you feel? It's like, well, I don't know. Which I was so disconnected, which I would say from the pain inside that lived there. And so then I was just reading anything that I could read. And there was 2 websites. I have no idea who the women were, but they were recovered from eating disorder. And they were sending the message, listen, you can do this. You can recover from an eating disorder. And I remember just reading them any time when I would feel, just like that's it. Like, it's just not me. I'm so pathetic. People can eat. I can't even eat. And I would read their website and just think, okay, it's possible. They're saying that's possible. Also, at the time, the yoga teacher that I had, I told her, that's, I think, only once we exchanged email on that. And she just said, hey, one day it's going to pass. I don't even know if she meant any of that, but just for me, that was, okay, she said that, and they're saying that. And I think those words were just stuck in my mind. But then also, any exercise I could find in the books on eating disorder, I had journals, I would draw, I would try to express. But then the big moment, there was a book, We're All in One Boat, The Pain Behind the Addictions. I tried
We're all
to actually
in one boat. That's the title. We're all in one boat. Okay.
Yeah, and I think the woman, I don't remember her name, Carolyn Hall or something like that. But her premise was from, I think, the Course of Miracles, which I don't know much about the Course of Miracles. But her premise was, we're all addicted to something. It's just different substance. For somebody, it's alcohol, food. For somebody, it's work. For somebody, it's, reading some books, but avoiding connection. And then it's all about this self-talk with yourself. Like, it's, and that not loving those parts of yourself. And on one hand, that all sounds woohoo, but at the time, I remember reading and rereading that book. And there was one time when my behavior happened again. And I remember just laying on the floor and thinking, my gosh, just the amount of self-hatred, it's just feeling that, again, the words come to my mind is that, at least other people can eat. I can't even eat. The basic thing I can't do. How do I think I can, I don't know, teach anyone yoga, do anything? Just look at yourself. You can't even appreciate food and engaging in this. And then it was almost, I don't hear voices, but it was something that the feeling you're feeling right now is not because of your behavior, but it's the feeling that drives you to that behavior. And I was like, what? It's almost the other part of my brain was, what are you talking about? Which was the concept of that book also. And then it was, again, the feeling you're feeling right now is the root cause of that behavior. So it's like that self-hatred, that's just this, that this is the feeling I'm trying to run away by eating it, vomiting it out, but this is the behavior. This is the feeling that drives me to do this. And then there was also that sense of, can you accept yourself right now? Just like this moment, even though you were over the toilet, can you accept yourself right now? And part of me was absolutely raging. It's like, how can you accept this? It's like, look at yourself. What do you mean accept yourself? Look at yourself. But there was some other part that is almost, I don't know, just almost something open.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could tell you it was like a hallelujah moment. And I was, I lived happily after that. No, it was not. It's just from that moment, there was something was in my mind that every time I would feel the urge or think about that, I would be like, okay, what is, I'm like, oh, I can feel something. Can I accept that? And in a way, even accepting that maybe I will never recover. Can I accept being alive even if I'm not going to be able to fix this? Which is not giving up and not, not having some kind of tools or things in place. If the urge comes, maybe, I don't know, go journal, call somebody. But that idea that my life is so worthless because look how pathetic I am.
Mm-hmm.
And more, yeah, maybe I will never ever be even just as normal human beings.
Mm-hmm.
But can I be still accepting myself?
Mm-hmm.
Which again, I wouldn't say that, oh, that was just, I was gliding through the self-acceptance and something,
Mm-hmm.
like, no. But over time, it's just, there was a moment when I looked back and I thought, wait, I'm not thinking about this. I'm not engaging in this. It's been already how long? And then it just sort of faded away. That
awesome.
Now it's been over 10 years and, I've been through some hard times for myself. But that thought of just, oh, let me just go eat anything I can find and then vomit, that never comes to my mind. Like, I mean, think of food, I think, in terms of like everyone thinks, oh, I think I'm eating a little too much sugar, maybe let's reduce that.
Cut back a little bit.
Yeah, but it's not an eating disorder type of thinking. It's like, it's different. It's more just like as any other human thinks about that. So yeah, it's and then another interesting thing, when in the midst of an eating disorder, the recovery in my mind, and I think for a lot of people who is an addiction, it looks like this perfect place that you get to, and now you're this perfect human being who is fine with their feelings and who is basically navigating life in this fairy type of a way, and that means I recovered. While I remember at the time when I was reading, I couldn't even comprehend it, but right now I comprehend it. When people say recovery is basically your life without just engaging into that behavior, but facing your feelings. Which is, life is still messy, which is you still get into some other things or whatever. You're totally not perfect, but you're not destroying yourself with that behavior.
Yeah.
And which again, about like, it's almost like not fixing. There is a lot of acceptance.
Sure.
That gives space for, of course, you need some willpower. I mean, I wouldn't say that when the moment of choice comes, that you can still give yourself that moment of choice and choose not to engage. But it's not just willpower. Like you can never get out of it, of just, let me just willpower out of it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's a powerful story for sure. And, you mentioned urges and feelings, and there's something there as well. I'm listening to a podcast called Overcoming Pornography for Good by Sarah Brewer. So that's one of the things she talks about there as well. Processing the urges. So when you brought that up of, okay, you're thinking about food. Okay, I may be thinking about, going down this path, but you allowed yourself to, okay, what exactly am I feeling at the moment? And I think that's interesting how you said early on, you wouldn't be able to even describe what you're feeling, or maybe even where you're feeling certain things in your stomach or your throat or whatever, your chest, right? So being able to feel that and then to process it. And that was really a powerful thought, that eventually, as you do that more, what you just said, it just kind of slipped away, or it kind of, it sounded like it was just kind of like letting go of, okay, I don't need this. And so the self-talk and how you viewed yourself, certainly that changed, through that as well. So those thoughts really stood out to me too.
I wouldn't also say that it changed completely. Okay. I think I'm still on that journey. but it shifted. There's also, at the time, I was part of the yoga community and working with them, and I think there was such a drive to be able to contribute to them and be part of this mission that also was, like dragging me forward, which last year, or like a couple of years back, I began to realize that, wait, like, in a way, actually, I think it would begin to happen with Ultraspeaking. It's like, what do I think? What is happening? Why there is this difference? So, which also brought again to that whole thing of my feelings and how I relate to myself. And ultimately, I realized that I was in a bit of a codependency with my yoga teacher. And I think at the moment when I entered that community, it was super helpful because it gave me that impulse. Like, it gave me the tools that were working for me then. But then it also was the point of almost, wait, like I need her attention. I need her approval. I need to be favored by that. Otherwise, I'm falling apart. And then it's almost kind of like I wouldn't say it's an addiction, but at the same time, it's still similar type of now it's not food, it's not a substance, but
it can jump. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like something else that now feels that void inside of me. So last 2 years, especially, I think that idea of really accepting the emotions and not just meditation wise, because like, again, as much as I love the yoga, and I still love yoga a lot, but I think sometimes in spiritual community, there is a lot of this. We need to be in this state, maybe the same as I felt going to Christian church as a kid, that I'm supposed to be this pure being to be accepted. And anything else that I feel as a human being is like not this pure stuff. I'm not saying that yoga is exactly like that, but
right.
But still, is like, instead of that, how different emotions and states, they're just expression of life, and I can learn to let them pass through me, versus I need to fix them and return to this equanimity state, and that's where I'm the perfect human being. And I think, right, it's probably if we talk 2 years from now, I'll be like, oh my God, Benjamin. like I'm trying not to have the illusions that I think right now I feel so much more me.
Sure.
At the same time, yes, I think right now I feel so much more me, and just the aliveness through whether I feel angry and not feeling angry at people, but, just kind of welcoming this determination in my body. Or if I feel lonely, like literally right now is not trying to find someone, even though I do believe in fostering a relationship and I love wholehearted friends. But also just sitting with myself and it's like, oh, can I hold this loneliness? Can I be, what is in that loneliness that I'm running away from? And usually there is it's almost passing through wormhole. For me, it feels like, I know, some big emptiness, but then on the other side of it, there's something else. But but it's a journey. It's sort of like, I don't want to say like, I figured it out, Benjamin.
No, I get it.
Now I know exactly how it works.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I appreciate you sharing that. And there's a psalm I was thinking of. I was in Brooklyn last week and working with some men over there, and I preached from the book of Psalms, Old Testament book of songs and prayers and things like that. And Psalm chapter 4, verse 8, King David, he said, "In peace I will both lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety." And, I think about that, and everybody's on a different journey, and some of those things that you're talking about from childhood and things like that, with respect to God, I think there's something there. And maybe you're experiencing some of that, with sometimes there is like maybe there's a missing piece, or, you've mentioned that language a few times, right? Emptiness or missing something. And that's the thing, none of us are always going to be perfect, but there was one who was perfect. And so that also answers some of those big box top questions too. But Yeah, it will be interesting for us to talk maybe in a couple of years from now to see, what's going on. And you definitely have
I,
overcome so much, which is awesome. And go ahead.
just before we finish, I think we spoke about that with you and about that missing piece, and
Yeah,
where we also discussed how there is this thing that I can do, there is self-agency that is absolutely crucial,
yeah,
but there is also a certain grace, whatever that grace comes from,
mm,
uh, whatever spiritual tradition or even non-tradition, there is something that I think also in addictions or anything, that there are people who do not recover. And
mm,
I would never ever think, oh, I just recovered because look at me. I'm just did all the exercises. And like, look,
mm.
I don't know why. Again, I can say I did all of these things, but ultimately there is also some grace that's, or there's purpose, or who knows. I don't want to make up a story about this.
Sure,
Like, oh, I just have a mission and somebody's
sure.
mission that, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
But there's something that there's a higher power that even when you have a light bulb moment, or even if you're in codependency with someone, to just even allow yourself to see that
hmm,
and go, oh, wait, maybe that doesn't work. I don't know why I may notice that and other people may not. To me, it
yeah.
feels as if there's something bigger that at a certain point knocks on my door and first terrifies me. It's like, what? No, wait.
Yeah,
Aren't we going having a good life here? And it's like,
yeah.
hello. You know?
The
But
knock on the door that's part of the journey, though. I mean,
yeah, totally,
the
absolutely.
uh, uh, that's funny. That maybe we should maybe we'll name this episode, a knock on
No,
the door.
yeah,
Because you had a knock on the door meeting Miguel, and the knock on the door with yoga, and a knock on the door with Ultraspeaking,
yeah,
and
totally.
just even how you and I are connected, and
Yeah,
working with you and Miguel, and so it's pretty amazing, what we're all experiencing, this thing called life, for sure.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, Benjamin.
So I know you don't know what the next knock on the door will be, but if I were to ask you one last question, what's next for Ganga? How might you answer that?
I really want to step up and, I don't know, contribute in some ways to someone who is on a journey too.
Hmm.
In a way, I'm the person who's sort of restrains in a way, even to say like, hey, I can make an impact or something. But I also see right now that it's almost like we all have a certain impact, and it's time not to shy away from it. So whether it's doing programs for caregivers with my husband, I also applied for an eating disorder association. They have volunteers that they train every half a year. So if I could mentor someone in that
Yeah,
space, I would love to.
yeah.
And coaching also comes from that. And
Hmm.
right now, I feel more and more that I would love to connect the whole head stuff with the body
Hmm.
experience, because I think doing yoga for 20 years, I'm more in tune with my body and still keep discovering. But I love when physicality and the mind stuff comes together. So it's,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how, but I have a sense that that's where it's going to go. Like, for
Yeah.
instance, ultra speaking, but plus something
Yeah.
else, together.
Yeah.
But just to help people live their life, to have aliveness through every experience, just
Hmm.
not to shut off life no matter what is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Ganga, thank you so much for being on. I'm going to hit the stop button here in just a second, but don't leave. I want to talk to you just for a few more minutes. But I just want to say thank you, Ganga, and thank you for being my friend, and trusting me, and really sharing your story. It takes a lot for anyone to share your story. So I really appreciate you, and for those who are listening, I know they do as well. For sharing and all the good things that you're doing to help other people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Benjamin. Goes both ways.